Okay, guys, the clock is 2, so I think we can get started with this webinar. Before I let Derek take over the presentation, I just want to give a short introduction of me. I'm Eric, and I'm working here as a product manager for Manage Engine at Inuit. We are the host of this webinar. And I would really like to thank you all for joining us here live. That's very, very nice. I know you're taking some time off from you to join this webinar. I really, really appreciate that you do that. And it's very, very nice. Just some small things before we start. During this presentation, if Derek goes over something very fast, you don't have to worry because the webinar will be recorded. And after the webinar, you will all get a link where you can watch it over and over again. So don't worry about that. And also, during the presentation, feel free to ask questions. It is okay if you write the questions in Swedish. I will just trying to translate them over as best as I can. And after the webinar, I really appreciate if you can give us some feedback. I know it's difficult to do, but I would really like you to do that. That would be awesome. That was all actually from me. Derek, I hope you can hear me and you're with us.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Excellent. Well, let me give you a little bit of idea of really what these webinars are about. We here at Manage Engine try to look at the feedback that we get, look at the questions that we get, look at the, I guess, pulse of the industry, and try to develop more educational type webinars that really we feel the majority of organizations and administrators need solutions for. And so that's really what today is about. As a Active Directory admin myself, as part of my career, there are certain things that we as administrators need to know about that are very difficult to see, that are going on in the background that maybe other administrators do, maybe automation does, heaven forbid, maybe we're being attacked. So what I want to do today is I want to cover some reports and alerts that will really help you as administrators get an idea of what's going on in the background of your Active Directory infrastructure. Before we get started to the material, I do want to take just a little bit of time to introduce myself. My name is Derek Melber. I am a many time, I think 16-time MVP, both in Active Directory and group policy. Really what the MVP allows me to do is talk to you about Microsoft technologies and also receive your emails and questions. I have a direct tie into Microsoft, so please, there's my email address. If you have any questions about this webinar, about Active Directory, group policy, security around Windows, please email me. If I don't know the answer, there are tons of other people that I know that are much smarter than myself, and we can tap into their knowledge. And again, as an MVP, I have direct access to Microsoft to even ask them questions. As Eric said, we all want to thank you so much for your time. We don't have a lot of time together this morning, so I want to point you to some resources that could really be something you can use after the webinar. Not only will you have the recording of this webinar, you also can take advantage of some resources that we've built for free, really for you, the administrators. The first one I want to point to is our blog. So I'm going to actually head out to our website here and point you to how to get to some information. If you go to support on our main landing page and you go to blogs, you will see that there is quite a few things that are listed here. And if you just want Active Directory blogs, you can search on Active Directory and it will send you to only those Active Directory blogs. So if you want to focus on those, you certainly can. Obviously, you can focus on other areas as well. But the idea of the blog is really, it's designed to be no more than 5 minutes of your time. So they're really short but really targeted on a particular area. So the idea is that once a week you come, you read the blog. If it's something that interests you, you spend a little more time. If not, we didn't take up more than 5 minutes of your time. So the blog is something that's very beneficial to you. The other thing that I want to point you to is our security hardening site. This security hardening site is actually available off of our main landing page as well. And if you just hover over products in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see security hardening for Active Directory. This particular site was developed a couple of years ago to help organizations get better control over security. And really the whole foundation of this is based on two Microsoft technologies called JIT and GIA. And these technologies are technologies that most admins have never heard of. And even if you have heard of them, you're not going to implement them. But they are good technologies in terms of what they accomplish. So what we wanted to do was build a site that would allow you to accomplish some of the security requirements from JIT and GIA, but do it on your own for virtually free. And that's why we built this portion of the website, which if you click on any area, you'll see that there are dedicated blogs to that particular security area. So please come out, read through the different blogs, read through the different areas to take advantage of how to secure your Active Directory environment. So those are some resources you have available: my email, the blog, and the security hardening site. One of the things that we're doing this year in 2017, which is we're pretty proud of, is our world tour. This is our third year of our world tour. I think I've been to around 12 to 15 countries already, and you'll see that soon I will be in Europe again. I'll actually be in Stockholm, then head down to Poland. I'll be in Italy. I'll be in Denmark. So please, if it's something that you can actually break away from for a half a day to come to one of these seminars, I would highly recommend that you do this. The reason is that it's a way for you to engage with Active Directory experts like myself and other experts that work for Inuit and other people that are going to be attending. It's a great way to network. Also, you can bring your live questions to these types of events because there are people there live giving you the information, and really they're just great venues to exchange information. And that's really what I try to do in the short time that I have, is just try to exchange as much information as possible. So we will we'll be coming to Stockholm in October. And I do have some information on that towards the end of our presentation. I'll give you some more details. Also, I want to point you to the fact that we do have an upcoming webinar as well on GDPR. I've spent quite a bit of time trying to research and develop solutions around GDPR like I typically do for other areas. And on September 20th, we are going to have a GDPR webinar. So please look out for the email to register for that. And you can probably go to the Inuit page and register there as well. But we've given multiple GDPR presentations already, and they've come with great fanfare. So it's just a way to engage you in a different way with GDPR so that you can really prepare for this. Living in the United States like I do and dealing with so many compliance regulations over the years, this is something that I would encourage all of you to prepare for. Because not preparing for compliance regulations means high cost. And that's one thing you want to avoid, especially when you have this much time to prepare for such a thing from now until May. So please come on September 20th and visit us with that live webinar. So let's jump into the material. And again, let me just briefly describe how I come to this information. Whenever I talk to administrators, I know the pain that they go through. And the pain that they go through in reality is they are not the only person that can touch Active Directory. And because you have other administrators that can touch Active Directory, you don't know what they're doing. So what we want to do as administrators is not really just, monitor the network in terms of making sure everybody's doing the right thing. We want to make sure that the environment is secure and stable. And if wrong users get into privileged groups, that could open up a security hole. If service accounts are disabled and we don't know about that. That's going to cause instability. So there's many different areas that I feel administrators need to be made aware of to make sure that we track what's going on in the environment. So the first thing I want to talk about is this idea of privileged groups. Now, privileged groups are one of those areas that I feel aren't monitored well at all, because you have so many of these privileged groups and it's overwhelming, so you just don't track them. But if you're not tracking who has privileged access, how do you know what's going on? It's impossible to see what's going on your network. So what I want to do is I want to break down for you privileged groups, and then I want to show you how you can easily get real-time alerts of membership changes. Now, as I said, privileged groups become a little overwhelming because there's so many of them. So how do you organize these and document these? Well, let's jump into our Active Directory environment here, and let me walk you through how you do this. So here's a live Active Directory environment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down privileged groups into 3 different categories. The first category is default. So domain admins, enterprise admins, schema admins, any group policy creator owners that have privileges when you install Active Directory. So document these groups and know that we're going to want to track the membership of these groups. A second type of group is what I call an application or service group. Now, when you install, for example, Exchange, you're going to have Exchange admins. When you install SharePoint, you have an administrative group for SharePoint. Really, when you install any application, you have particular groups that are created inside of Active Directory for this. So here's my SQL Server group. So you really need to document these groups as well. So you have default, you have service and application, and then finally you have what I call custom groups. So with your custom groups, you might have, for example, IT managers. You might have a help desk group like HD techs, like help desk technicians. So these are groups that typically administrators use to grant privileges over different areas of administration of Active Directory and the network. So in the end, you're going to have 3 different categories of groups, and you're going to list those groups out. So now you have a master list of all of these groups. Now that you have a list, a documented list of these groups, you need to track the changes to these groups. So for example, let's say you guys are right now on this particular webinar. So you're paying attention to the webinar, but who's to say that one of your colleagues who isn't on the webinar doesn't go into, let's say, schema admins, go to the members, and just add in their own account, right? Click, click, done. Because Active Directory doesn't have like a easy way to view what has changed in the directory, nor what the current configuration is, how are you ever going to know that that particular group just changed membership? So what I want to do is I want to point you to the Microsoft solution, kind of describe quickly some negatives, and then let's talk about a real solution. So if you go in and set up auditing in Windows, the auditing trail is going to show up in the event viewer. So if we open up the event viewer and go to my security log, this is where that information goes. But you'll notice that I have 140,000 events. How am I going to know which one of these was the change to schema admins? I don't have time to double click on each of these. I really don't have time to even look at reports. But the good thing is the information goes through this log. So even though Microsoft doesn't provide us a solution to report and really get information out of the log, why not just use a tool that does that? Why not have a tool allow you to see things that are going on inside of Active Directory? So right here, you see that I have the schema admins that occurred here, right, September 6th, and it's telling me all the details. So it said that BART was added. It tells me who made the configuration. I'm going to say this a couple of times during this webinar. Information like this can change the way that you administer Active Directory. But we can even go one step further. This is just a report. No one on this webinar has time to look at reports. However, what if you can set up an alert for this in such a way that as soon as something like this changes, you get an alert either to the dashboard of AD Audit, and or in addition to that, you can get an email. The alerts inside of AD Audit Plus are associated with reports. Reports are manual, but as soon as an entry shows up on a report, such as modified admin groups, you can actually have an email sent out. So the configuration here is so simple. I basically get a report that tells me when any of my 3 categorized groups changes membership. As soon as any entry goes on that report, I get an email. It's that simple. Now watch how efficient this technology is. If I go in and add or remove, right? So now I'm going to remove BART. Watch how fast that this occurs. I remove BART. I apply the change. I go back into AD Audit Plus, and you will see that I already have that BART was removed. So these alerts are in real time. I can get you a solution to your inbox in your email, even on your phone, that when someone else in your organization changes a setting in Active Directory, you are notified within seconds of that particular change. The configuration of the report that we're talking about here is actually a default report. So if I come down here to my group modification, which of course admin groups, modified admin groups is a default report inside of AD Audit Plus. All I need to do is hit the plus sign here and add in the additional service and application groups and custom groups that we documented, and you're done. That's how simple this can be. So when we start looking at the solution around getting alerts and reports on these critical aspects of Active Directory, it's really simple. You set up auditing, you go and you have a tool like AD Audit Plus which gathers those logs and then just reports and alerts for you. It's really that simple and extremely powerful. Once you start getting alerts with regard to changes that are occurring in Active Directory, you now don't have to focus on generating reports. You just wait for emails to show up. And if you don't have an email, you are confident that the security that you put in place is still in place because it hasn't changed. Now let's move to another area that's also critical with regard to privileged access: service account management. Now, with service accounts, this can be a very daunting task as well, almost more complex than your privileged groups. Because how do you know where all of your service accounts are configured? I mean, if I go into just a single machine, right? If I go to this single machine, this is a domain controller, and I go to services.msc, I can see that there is a log on as column, and I can see that there are certain users configured as service accounts. These are the service accounts we're talking about, these Windows service accounts. Now, this is one server. How many servers do you have? 100, 500, 1,000? I've gone into organizations that have over 2,000 servers. You're telling me that they have to go run this report 2,000 times to try to get the information? Well, the answer is no. One of the things that I did, which was personal to me, of course, when I came to Manage Engine, was I asked the development team if they could develop a tool to help other administrators with this. And inside of our free AD Manager tools, we added something called service account management. And in this service account management, you simply go through the list of your servers, click them. Once you've selected your servers, you then go get service accounts. The service accounts that you're getting is the exact same report that you got from services.msc, but now you get it in a nice, easy format, and all of them in one list based on machine. Now, there's quite a few of these that are actually kind of default that we don't care about, so we're going to filter those out. And you will see that the two that we got by running services.msc are right here. So this first question, or this first issue, which is we got to know where they're all configured, we just solved that with a free tool. Now, for some of you, I know that you already have the free tool. If you haven't downloaded or updated the free tool in a couple of years, please go do so, because this was added just 2 years ago, okay? So now what we have is we have a list of all of our Windows service accounts. At this point, it's impossible for AD Audit Plus to know your service accounts. It's impossible. So you're going to have to create a custom report. Super simple. Watch this. Under configuration, you go to user, because a service account is a user modification. And then you're going to create a new report profile. And in the new report profile, you simply give it a name, say it's a user modification, and then specify which changes you want to report on. I suggest you look at all of them. And then you simply hit the plus sign and you add in from the free tool all the service accounts that it documented. Done. That is super simple. The result is powerful. Now I can get reports on all of my service account modifications. So you'll see here, anytime a service account is modified, it's reported. Now remember, AD Audit Plus works with alerts too. Any report can have an alert for it. I already have an alert set up. So if anyone goes into any of my service accounts and disables it, for example, now watch how fast this is. I disable the service account. I go into AD Audit Plus and I already have an alert. Now tell me, I want you to take a step back and realize this. You are receiving emails within seconds of someone modifying a service account. Today, the only way that you know a service account was disabled is a user calls you to tell you that the application's broke. They don't know the service account's disabled. You don't know the service account is disabled. So it's going to take you time, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, to track back to that service account running that service which the user's application touches. No longer do you worry about that. You just sit and wait for emails. And when the email comes in, it tells you exactly what happened, and then you can go take care of the problem. By getting an alert like this, users are never going to even know that the service wasn't available. So this real-time aspect becomes essential. I'm not just reporting, I am reporting, but I'm not just reporting. I'm giving you email alerts in real time. Now, we've kind of touched on two aspects so far. We've touched on groups and we've touched on service accounts. Now let's move to administrator logon. And I want to walk you through a couple of different things. The first thing I want to walk you through is the security configuration. Now, I'm going to go to my Active Directory users and computers, and I'm going to show you my administrator account. Here it is. Now, this looks like the original administrator account, but I'm going to give you some suggestions on how you secure your environment and then track administrator logons. First of all, this administrator account, obviously everyone knows the name. If they know the name, all they need is the password to get to be an administrator of Active Directory. So what I have done is I have renamed administrator. How do I prove that? Well, I go into administrator, attribute editor, And there is one setting that's unique for administrator, and that's the SID right here. Okay? You'll see that this SID ends in 1195. So I have renamed the original administrator, which ends in 500, and I have added this new administrator to no privileged group. So it has no privileges whatsoever. Now the question is, well, there's actually two questions. Why did I do this? And secondly, what did I rename it to? Well, if I get a list of all my users, right? So if I find all my users in the Active Directory, well, that's a pretty big list, right? I mean, these are all my users. How are you going to go through every single property trying to find 500? Well, unfortunately, Microsoft doesn't give you a tool for this. So again, what I want to do is I want to show you the power of tools. If I have the correct tool, I can quickly get reports on existing Active Directory configurations. Then I can go and I can look at columns, the properties, even the SID, the security identifier. Then I can look for the 500 SID, right? So I go down, it's not there. I go down, it's not there. I go down, it's right here. I renamed it to James Bond. I could also do a search, a quick search, right? But the idea is that I now have a tool which allows me to find information in Active Directory quickly versus 80 users and computers, which is not quick. The second question is, why did I rename this? Again, take a step back and think about this. You as the administrator know that administrator is no longer the name of the built-in account that administers Active Directory. So what if someone tries to log on as administrator? What does that tell you? You are under attack. Don't you want to know that? Don't you want to be able to track when someone tries to log on? Don't you want to be able to report and alert when someone fails to log on? Now, I can look at this over the last, let's say, 30 days. And I can get information about different users that are trying to log on. If I get an administrator to show up here, doesn't that mean that someone tried to log on as administrator and failed? Now, if I go back to my custom range, I think if I go and look a little further back, let's see what we'll get here. Look here, administrator. Someone tried to log on as administrator. I click on it, and now I see the details. On June 21, someone tried to log on as administrator, right? Doesn't this help you know when you're under attack? And again, you can get alerts for any report. Now, one of the things I want to focus on here is the fact that the alerts also have what are called thresholds associated with them, okay? So the idea is that when someone is trying to log on, right, log on failures for admin users, you want to set up what's called a threshold. If there is one within a minute, it could have just been a fluke. But what if there are 10 in a minute? Well, that means you're under attack. That means they're constantly trying to get into that account. So what you want is to not only track administrator and James Bond at the 500 SID, how about if you track all logon failures for all admin users, all the IT staff? That way, everyone knows when someone else is trying to get into their account. Now, the way that this one works is, see if I can get to this one, logon failures for admin users. And I don't add the users, I add the groups that administrators belong to. And of course, I can add my custom groups too. So now I just expanded my view, not just of administrator, the honeypot account for Active Directory, and James Bond, the default 500 SID, but for anyone that has administrative privileges. And if anyone tries to log on, I am going to get an alert on my dashboard telling me that that occurred. This is some powerful information. I can also get emails telling me when thresholds hit, that someone has failed to log on as an administrator account. Extremely powerful information that's almost impossible to see otherwise. A fourth critical alert and report that you need: group policy modifications. Now, group policy is by far one of the most complex areas of Active Directory. There's no question, right? When I go into group policy and I look at a particular group policy object, let's just look at one particular group policy object, and I go down to what I call the abyss of settings. This is where there's just so many settings. Look at all of these settings. These are all security settings. If I were to go through all the different areas in group policy, right? Go through the administrative templates, look at these settings here. If I actually look at all the settings, right? All the settings, the list is filter options, right? No keywords, any, boom. There's my list. Look at this list of settings. Oh my gosh. I know I'm scrolling really fast, but this is a big list. There are hundreds, thousands of settings in this list. A single GPO has 5,000 plus settings. How do you know when something changes? How do you know if someone didn't go into a group policy object, configure it for, let's say, something critical like your password policy, right? I mean, let's say someone goes in and says, you know what? I'm going to require that no password is needed. Done. How do you know that that occurred? I mean, this is one GPO out of a list of all of these group policy objects, all the GPOs that I have. You probably have more than this. How do you know which setting in which GPO changed? I mean, there is no option here to view current changes. Nothing. So what you really need is a tool. You really need a tool that allows you to see not only logons and account management, but other changes with regard to your environment. So what you want is you want to be able to see when certain things are changing in your environment. Now, the other settings that I showed you were absolutely real time. Group policy has a little bit of a lag compared to the other things that I showed you already. But you're going to see here soon that it doesn't have that much of a lag. You'll see right here, minimum password length change. I already have an alert on that. Soon it's going to show up on my report, and now I'm going to have the ability to see these things changing. When I get to this point, I'm going to be able to see the details, the old value and the new value. Extremely powerful. The ability for you to have these controls to know when things are changing. This tells me that it was set to 0. That is important for you to know in real time. And I guarantee you, I was a group policy MVP for about 10 years. This tool right here, Event Viewer, is not going to help you track down group policy changes. Does it go through this log? Yes. Is it complicated? Extremely. So you need a solution that's going to help you see things that are going on in group policy. So now, again, until you receive the email, you have certainty that group policy is stable and maintained as the way that you want it. Now, a final area that we need to go over is delegation, also known as access control lists of organizational units. Now, this is a very complicated configuration. If we go back into Active Directory and look at how these are set up through what's called the Delegation Control Wizard. So let's say, for example, that I want my HD techs to be able to reset passwords for my HR employees, right? So now all of these employees under HR can be controlled, their password be controlled by my HD Techs group, okay? The question is, how did I know that that was even changed? How do I know if any of these security settings are changed for any of my OUs? I mean, I don't have a very big Active Directory environment, right? You, I guarantee, have a bigger Active Directory environment than I do. But how do you know when an OU access control list changes for project? You don't. I mean, it is nearly impossible to see this security list, right? This is the access control list right here. When you look at this list and something changes on it, how do you know? I mean, a single entry has hundreds of settings, right? If I go under properties, how do I know when any of these settings changed? There's over 13,000 individual check marks for a single access control list for an OU. Without a tool, you are at the mercy of this tool right here to tell you when that changes. That's not going to happen. But again, what if you have a tool that can actually tell you when an OU changes? Organizational unit HR was modified, and here's the information that changed. Here's the new ACL, here's the old ACL. It gives you the full disclosure of the information that's changing. I also have reports that can tell me this, right? So I have reports on OU permission changes. HR was changed on September 6th. It tells me the full details here. So the reports are great, but without the alerts, I really can't help you as an admin. But with the alerts, I am giving you unbelievable information at your inbox. I am getting you information, for the most part, for almost every setting in real time. There's a lag with group policy, but everything else, real time. Extremely powerful. So this gives you an idea. I'm just going to say this is a sampling, just a taster of what you can do. These are just 5 areas. There are many more areas that we have documented and helped you understand what you can actually track, report, and alert for changes in AD. So this is just kind of a precursor to that. So Eric, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this back to you. Maybe we have some questions, and then I'll finish up talking about the seminar that's coming up in early October.
Oh yeah, actually it's coming questions, to be honest with you. Thank you so much, Derek. Really, really good. Really nice as usual. Just so you know, guys, I'm not sure I will be able to answer all these questions actually. But if I'm not able to answer them during this presentation because we only have like 10 minutes to go, we will send them back as an email to you as soon as possible. I got one question here, Derek. You're talking about documenting the groups.
Yes.
And a customer here, what I think is asking, like, I have 5,000 to 10,000 groups. Do you have any idea to help me out here to really do a good documentation? I think that's kind of the question.
So I understand your pain. And let me tell you why I broke these groups down into these 3 categories like I did. It's because of a situation like yours. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to have to go through a listing of all your groups and have to figure out which ones have privileges. So instead of that, I'm inverting it and I'm saying, I know which ones have privileges, let's document those. So what I don't want you to do is look at a wall of 55,000 groups and go, which ones? I want you to go in and say, all right, I'm going to document my default groups. I know which ones those are because everyone has those. Then I'm going to go through my domain controllers and my servers, and I'm going to think about all the applications that are installed that would have put something in Active Directory. Okay? Now, typically when those groups are put into Active Directory, they're either placed under users or they're put into a specific organizational unit. So you'll be able to go through and see some of those. But this is also helping you document. And start with the easy ones: Exchange, SharePoint, SQL, any type of network application or network service that you have. Start with that. Does this require time and effort? You better believe it does. I actually audited an environment that had 1,000 servers. They had over 100,000 groups, and we went through these tasks in that environment. We ended up with over 1,000 privileged groups. It took us about 3 days, but we had the list. So yes, I know it's a little bit overwhelming, but don't look at it as the big picture. Look at it as individual components that you need to document. Now, with regard to your other groups, that's where I would kind of push you to the idea of cleaning up Active Directory. You need tools that can help you see what's going on in Active Directory right now. So you can run reports like group reports. So you can run reports of groups without members, for example, right? So now you can get a list of groups that don't have members. If they don't have members, most likely that group can be deleted. So you can do some cleanup as well by going through some of the different tools that are available. And we actually have, I think it's a recording. I don't know if Inuit has it, but if you email someone at Inuit or me, I can actually send you to a recorded webinar on cleaning up Active Directory.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We also got like a question here, like if you want to try this out, is it complicated to set up the AD audit, for example? I think the question.
All right, here's my challenge
for anything.
All right, so here's my challenge for everyone on this webinar. Okay, I want you to time it. I want you to start the clock. If you do not have AD Audit, what you're going to do is you're going to go to manageengine.com, you're going to go to products, you're going to go to AD Audit, and you're going to hit the download. Once it downloads, you're going to go to a virtual machine somewhere in your environment, and you are going to go to that virtual machine and install AD Audit Plus. Once you've installed AD Audit Plus on that machine, you are going to go to domain settings, and it's going to show here, right, all of your domain controllers. Add domain controller. It's going to enumerate all of them. You're going to select them. You're done. Okay? Now, if you don't have auditing set up, it's also going to throw up an alert telling you, hey, you don't have auditing set up. Do you want us to do that for you? It's a single click. It is literally from initiation of download to configuration of AD Audit Plus, less than 20 minutes. And you can start getting reports. Now, the alerts are something you have to set up, but they're so simple. I mean, an alert is so simple. An alert is nothing more. Let me just pick one here. All you do is give it a name. That's up to you. You give it a description. That's up to you. You give it a severity level. Up to you. And you simply hit this little plus sign and tell it which report you want it to focus on. And you're done. That's it. That's it. That's all you need to do. And now whenever that report has an entry that shows up on it, you also receive on your dashboard an alert. Now, if you want an email, you're going to have to go in and set up email. I mean, let's be real. I don't know your email configurations. AD Audit Plus doesn't. But you're going to go into the administrative console and you're going to set up your email so that this tool can email you when something happens. It is so super simple. It is so fast and efficient to set up these tools, which is one of the reasons that I'm aligned with these tools, is because I'm here to help you, especially as an MVP.
Awesome. I also got a question here, like what is the difference between AD Audit and a log or another log management tool or syslog or a application log management tool?
Okay. All right. So this is an important distinction. AD Audit Plus is nothing more than a SIM, okay? It deals with security events. The security events that it deals with are from only Windows security logs. That's it. So the only thing that AD Audit Plus deals with are Windows computers security logs. Not the application log, not the system log, only the security log. And you see here that I can look at servers, I can look at files, and of course I have all of these Active Directory type components. If you want to look at any other log, for example, let me go to my log here. If I want to look at the system log, I cannot do that in AD Audit Plus. If I want to look at application entries and look at those, I cannot do that in AD Audit Plus. In order to do that, you have to go to a different tool. That would be Event Log Analyzer. Event Log Analyzer is a robust SIM tool. Event Log Analyzer is a tool that you can actually leverage to go in, right? Here's Event Log Analyzer right here, and I can look at reports across the board. Let me log back in. Okay. I mean, I have reports, I have alerts. Everything is similar to what I just showed you in AD Audit Plus, but of course, this is a true big SIM tool. So I have correlations, right? I have things that I can do after the fact, like shutting down a machine or shutting down a service or doing things like that. So if you want a robust solution, a true network SIM, Event Log Analyzer. But if you want something that's geared towards your Active Directory environment, that's AD Audit Plus.
Awesome. Next question. In my environment, I have problems with the locked out users.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
And do you know, can you help me with this problem? I think.
Yeah. So as I'm sitting here, in front of my computer, I have my computer, I have my cell phone, I have my tablet, I have all of these devices which tap into my accounts. So what happens is a user has the same devices and the user doesn't understand, right? So a user goes and changes their password on their desktop, but fails to change it on their tablet, but their tablet is still trying to authenticate. So what happens is the user is going to lock themselves out. So what we have done inside of AD Audit Plus is provided you with an account lockout analyzer tool. So when users get locked out, we do two things for you. One is we give you the details about the lockouts, right? Recent logons, local logons, all these details. And we give you the history telling you which machine, which device actually has locked it out. Here's a bad password, right? So what we're doing is going through the log for you. And when someone is locked out, trying desperately to get you information so you can track down which machine it is, which device it is, so you can instruct the user, oh, go to your tablet and reset the password on your tablet and it will eliminate the problem. So this is something that we have implemented. This is about 1.5 years, 2 years old. It has been extremely successful and very popular, this account lockout analyzer.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. I think he believes that I guess AD Audit uses an account in AD or a service or something to get the log. What account level do I use?
All right, so AD Audit has to get the logs, and it has to get the logs initially, right? All of your Active Directory logs from your domain controllers. So you are going to need an account that has the ability to go in and grab the information from your domain controllers. So this particular account does not need domain admin privileges. It does need some privileges, but not domain admin. If you want to implement a least privilege environment for AD Audit Plus, I'm going to point you out to our blog. Our blog, remember, over here, right? So if you go to Manage Engine, you go to Support Blogs. I wrote a blog on this, so you're going to have to search for it. But I wrote a blog on configuring the minimum 80 Audit Plus credentials. So you have a solution that doesn't require full domain admin privileges, but still allows it to go in and gather the logs from all the machines that it needs to, so you can get the power of the reporting and the alerting.
Okay, awesome, Derek. I think we still have to start to wrap it up a little bit here.
So let me just quickly talk about the seminar that's coming up. So October 10th, I believe, is a Tuesday. I will actually be in Stockholm, and these events are extremely powerful. I would suggest that anyone on this webinar and any of your colleagues should attend, because it's a great way for you to interact with other administrators, to see what other administrators have questions about, to possibly get your own questions answered live. So this particular seminar is directed towards security, compliance, and automation. So again, what I try to do in these sessions and seminars and my webinars is try to get you solutions around things that you're struggling with. So in this particular seminar, we're going to be talking about some similar things we just did in the webinar, but you're going to see it live. You're going to see it expanded. We're going to talk about privileged access. We're going to talk about users, groups, service accounts, more detail about configuration around them, not just receiving alerts, but how do you configure those things. We're also going to talk about passwords and how you can improve your passwords. Then we're going to move and talk about automation and how you can automate some of these things. And because you're live, you're going to see everything live as it's happening. You can raise your hand, you can ask questions. It's more of an interactive environment. And of course, you get a free lunch too. So those are all great benefits, but you know, like I said, I've been to Stockholm probably 5 to 7 different times performing these different sessions, and they always come back with great reviews. And it's not all about product, it's about education and how we can solve some things for you. So I would encourage you all to look out for that. And Eric, have you guys sent out a mailer on this, or how can someone enroll?
Oh yeah, we have sent out an email, and I'm sure in this thank you email after this webinar, we will probably have some small information about it. And we also have a landing page. So if you go to inuit.se and events, evenemang, you can just sign up for now. It's completely free. We don't charge you at all. And just so you know, there's just a limited space. So don't wait too long. Usually we are kind of full for these events, just so you know. And it's kind of sad if you miss it, to be honest with you.
Awesome.
Okay, Derek, I think that was all for today.
Fantastic.
I hope you all had a great time and learned something. At least I did. And go to this event site, and if you want to sign up for the GDPR webinar in 2 weeks, I think, two and a half weeks, something like that. It will also give you some great information, both around Active Directory, what is important, and Derek is going to talk about GDPR in a very good way, believe me. That was all. Just so you know, please, if you have any feedback, I know it's hard, but we love to get feedback, because that's the only way we can do it better the next time. It's the only way. Otherwise, we think it's good enough. And thank you so much, Derek. Take care and get out in the sun in Phoenix.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Thank you, guys.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.